Please subscribe and ring the bell.
Today I'm going to be discussing with you the difference between permanent vinyl and heat transfer vinyl and how to tell the difference. So I don't know about you, but I have a ton of vinyl of all kinds. And there's been times that I'm not quite sure which one is permanent and which one is heat transfer. But today I'm going to show you how you can tell yourself. So for instance, this is permanent vinyl here. And if you flip them over, all of these have grids on the back. Not all permanent vinyl has a grid, but if it has a grid, most likely it's permanent vinyl. Or it could also be temporary removable vinyl as well. But that's not always the case. I also have, this is matte black vinyl on a roll. This one does have the grid. But I also have this is iridescent permanent vinyl. And if you open it up here, this looks very similar to heat transfer vinyl, but it is not. So this one is permanent vinyl. One other way that you can tell if it's permanent versus heat transfer is all you need to do is just peel a little bit on the corner. If you touch the back side of the vinyl and it's sticky, then it's permanent or temporary or removable. So for this one, the colored part is sticky. So I know that this is permanent vinyl. Now, if you go and look at heat transfer vinyl, when you go to remove the corner, it is a little more difficult to separate the corners, but you'll notice that the colored side has no sticky to it. It's just the carrier sheet on the back that is sticky. So that is one way you can tell the difference between heat transfer vinyl and permanent vinyl. It's kind of hard to demonstrate, but oh, there we go. So if I peel this off, this I'm going to notice is not sticky and the back side is sticky. So that is going to be heat transfer versus permanent. And one last note is one mistake that I had made is I had this roll here. It looks very similar to heat transfer vinyl. Wasn't quite sure. Comparing it to this one it looked very similar. When I peeled it off, the white was not sticky and the carrier sheet was sticky. So I was pretty confident it was heat transfer vinyl, but it felt a little stiffer. So I went ahead and started cutting my images like it was heat transfer vinyl, but I noticed that it felt a little firmer. So I'm like, this doesn't seem right. So what I ended up doing is just doing a little test run on it. And ultimately I realized that this was actually permanent color change vinyl that is white and then it turns blue when it gets cold. And so I was actually using permanent vinyl, not heat transfer vinyl. So it's just, if it doesn't quite seem right to you, then I would ultimately test it on just a piece of scrap fabric or a rag towel. Just cut a little piece off and try to iron it on. If it doesn't stick, then it is definitely permanent vinyl. One thing to note on iridescent vinyl, it has this clear film, which you want to remove prior to cutting. If you forget, it's not a big deal, but sometimes it just is very tedious to try to pick out this clear when you're trying to weed. But this is, I believe, just for protection, but you do not need the top layer for iridescent. Now I'm going to show you some different types of vinyl that they have out there on the market. And again, there is even more than the examples that I have, but I just wanted to share with you some of the different types. So this one is pretty cool. It is basically printable heat transfer vinyl with a really neat pattern that you can use. And this one is more of a matte finish. This one is heat transfer holographic glitter vinyl. Again, very cool. This one is one of my favorites. This is holographic or iridescent heat transfer vinyl, and I've had great success with these and looks very nice on shirts that I have made. There is also just regular heat transfer vinyl. This is just a normal red. You can see it's white on the back versus a lot of them are black. And this is just regular permanent vinyl, just a solid color. And this is considered shiny or glossy finish. And then this one is considered a matte finish permanent vinyl. And then this one is color changing permanent vinyl. And so it changes colors based on temperature, which is really fun. I ended up putting this on a couple of tumblers that I had. And then there's also holographic permanent vinyl, which is a lot of fun for many uses. These are just examples of a few types of vinyl out there. Okay, I just wanted to show you a couple of examples of things that you can use to hold your scraps of vinyl when you're reading. I like to use empty Lysol Clorox wipes. You can also use baby wipes container, empty Kleenex container, or they also have like a Dollar Tree nail polish, rubber nail polish holders, or they also have on Amazon little holders with a suction cup that also has little slots in it to help you get your vinyl off. The bigger pieces are not as hard to deal with, but all these little ones, they just go everywhere. So these little slots up here make it perfect to capture those. And this one has a good area right there as well. And another way that what they can also use is the outside of a lint roller. That you can just lay the lint roller here and just stick your little scrap just right to that. Since it's sticky, it holds on to them, and then once that's full, you just take the outer layer off. So there's a lot of ways to keep your vinyl off of your table, yourself, your furniture, the floor. And these are just a couple examples. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to cut permanent vinyl on your cutting mat. First, you want to make sure your cutting mat is fairly clean. If not, I would highly recommend either just using some dish soap and a light scrub brush or a baby wipe to get some of the excess off. If you're still having trouble with stickiness, what I would recommend doing it after you attach your vinyl is using a little bit of painter's tape up in the corners to keep it on there well. So if you have your permanent vinyl in a roll, what you can do to prevent waste is keep it on the roll and just take the top, line it up best you can, and keep the roll attached to the bottom, and then feed it into your machine. This way it will suck it in, but it will keep this just kind of dangling at the end. Then after your image is cut out, then you can just take scissors and cut it at the line, and then you have saved the extra vinyl that you may have cut a little bit too long. So that's how I would do permanent vinyl on a roll. If it is just a 12-inch by 12-inch, then all you need to do is just line it up as best you can and press it down. Again, if you notice your corners peeling up, I would also recommend just using a little bit of painter's tape just to secure that, so when it brings it in, the blade does not rip it up and fold and bend and mess up your image that you're trying to cut out. Then when you're ready to take it off, instead of peeling this way and rolling this up, it's going to warp your vinyl. You flip it over to the back and then you peel away your mat to keep the vinyl laying flat. Now, if you're using heat transfer vinyl, you want to make sure that you determine which side is the front and the back. Shiny side is down. So this is iridescent heat transfer vinyl. So this way you would be facing downwards, lining it up as well, pressing it firmly, and then feeding it into your machine this way. And then you also do not want the machines. I've seen a lot of comments saying, hey, it didn't cut all the way through. You do not want it to cut all the way through. The shiny part on this side is called the carrier sheet. You want it to just cut this back layer off. So you weed out the extra and you keep the part that you're gonna be ironing on. The carrier sheet is kind of like your transfer tape, but it's just attached to this one. So you only wanna cut the back layer for your vinyl. And the same goes for your permanent vinyl. You only want it to cut the top layer and keep the back together. You don't want it to cut all the way through. I hope this helps.
If you love my mommy's video, give her a thumbs up.